You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today is Rob Walling. Rob, did I say that right?
You did.
All right, good. I was going to say, or we can re-record that part. But audience, I'm excited to have Rob aboard. He's doing something. I don't think we've had anybody that does exactly what Rob does, or maybe even if anything close. So before we get started, let's just have Rob tell us a little bit about him and what he does and how he helps people.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
So I run the world's first and largest community for bootstrapped software entrepreneurs. So folks who go against the grain, right? Folks who are not raising venture funding, and they're either raising very small amounts of funding or they're doing it on their own. And so it's education. I write books. We have conferences. I have a podcast called Startups for the Rest of Us. And I've even raised a venture fund. We have $42 million under management where we invest in bootstrapped SaaS founders.
Awesome. So why SaaS?
Because that's where, for me, that's where my experience is. So there's a couple of reasons, really. Like SaaS is incredibly, it's hard to do, but it's incredibly valuable once you build a SaaS business, right? So when you go to sell it, you can sell it for, we recently saw someone sell for 10 times top line revenue, 10 times top line, right?
Wow.
Now that's not the most common. The most common ranges right now are say between 4 and 8, but we've seen 10, we've seen 15. So it's really valuable because it's subscription business. And as you know, when you build a company and every first of every month you start at zero revenue, it's hard, right? It's hard, but with SaaS, it's a snowball. I happen to have experience. I've been doing it for about 15 years and I've started several SaaS companies myself. And so I kind of just started talking about what I was doing on a podcast, and it happened a bit organically until I realized, oh, there's something here, that people want advice, information, and guidance on how to do it better.
I love what you just said right there, because number one is, this is going to sound funny, but like, when I was realizing that I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do in school, I started working at the Gold's Gym. And I thought in the beginning they wanted me to work there and train people. Like I was some 18, 19, I think I was 19-year-old, that's who they want to give you advice on how to, get in shape and build your body. But they wanted me to be a salesperson. And I thought, oh my gosh, a salesperson, I don't want to do that. And I thought, well, why are they paying me so much money at the time? I thought so much money. And I sold like 70 memberships in a month. And I started doing the math, like, wait a minute, they're making a lot of money on these subscriptions. And you think of the whole fitness industry. I know it's different, but it's subscription, subscription to a car wash, right? All of these things. You take your cost and then you take your profit, and it's pretty easy to figure out how much money you're making, right? So I love that concept. But the other thing that you said, and I'm going to have you respond to that, but also I want to add in before I forget, is in the Richest Man in Babylon, one of the tenets is invest in what you know, right? I always say invest in what you know. And if you don't know, find somebody who does. And so I love that you said, well, look, it's not like you sat out to do this. It like you said, it grew organically, which means there's a demand for it, right? That you learned something. It's not like, hey, I came up with this concept and there's no proof of concept, blah, 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 blah. Like sometimes there's lots of businesses out there that are like sold that way, right? So Comment on those two things, like investing in what you know and how that helps you sleep at night, because I think that does. And then also the subscription. Give me some examples maybe of some people that have built, just kind of high level.
Yeah, for sure. So the investing in what I know, I found in my, 20 years as being an entrepreneur, well, 25 in trying, but 20 in actually being able to do it, that I have always been looking for, where do I have any type of unfair advantage?
Yeah.
Right? So back 25 years ago, I was working a day job and I wanted to escape that, right? And I started buying real estate, just residential real estate in Los Angeles, because that's where we lived. And what I realized pretty quickly is I had no advantage.
Yeah.
anyone can go and just buy a house. And so we made a little bit of money, but it was just a grind, and it was years, and it was all this time. During the day, I'm writing software for banks and credit card companies. And I started realizing, wait, I'm a software engineer. That's a skill that other people don't have. And so then nights and weekends, I started building software products, a bunch of which didn't work for exactly the reason you just said. Is I came up with an idea and no one gave a crap about it.
Mhm.
But what I realized is, if I'm gonna have an edge in anything, it's gonna be something that I love deeply, right? For me, like, I love playing board games, tabletop games. Like, I collect like vintage comic books. I have a real interest in those, and I write software. Those are three things, and I play the guitar, right? So if I'm going to start a
Mhm.
business or I'm trying to make money, like, I would probably do it in one of those four things, because I've been doing all of those for, again, 20, 30, whatever years. So that to me is why I'm in software now, right? Is that there's some advantage. And also, as you said, I just kind of started talking about it on a podcast one day. First, I had a blog, and I got like 10,000 readers over the course of many years. And then I started a podcast. And by the end of the year, a year of 52 episodes, I think we had like 500 listeners. It was very small,
Yeah.
but we kept going. And that was 15 years ago now, and
Wow.
we have tens of thousands. Yeah, we have 750 episodes, tens of thousands. And that became, as you said, a proving ground for, oh, people care about this. Now, maybe it took us a long time to get here, but um, I find that showing up every day and shipping something is kind of how you find out, what people want. Then flipping over to subscription, I don't know if you've read John Warlow's. He has three books. He has a book called Built to Sell, and he
Mm.
has a book called The Art of Selling Your Company, I think is what it's called. And his third one is called The Automatic Customer, and it's
Mm.
all about it's about how to maximize the exit value of any business you run.
Yeah.
And the automatic customer business specific, or automatic customer book specifically, talks about, no matter what business you're in, try to make it subscription, because the moment you have, and there's a reason there's subscription socks, right? And there's subscription beef jerky. And there's, as you were pointing out, because scripts and subscription, what's it, the Razors, Dollar
Oh
Shave
yeah.
Club, that company sold for $1 billion to, I think it
Man.
was Gillette. And it's because it's subscription. Like, why? Gillette already makes razors. They don't need someone to make blades for them, right? But it was the engine. So that's where SaaS is so valuable. And I mean, man, we have some SaaS companies that are, completely, say, horizontal. Like, have you heard of Calendly for
Oh yeah.
scheduling?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we backed a competitor of theirs called SavvyCal, and so it's a very similar product, although I would say it's much better for certain reasons, right? But it's horizontal. We also have these incredibly tight niche vertical SaaS companies. So one is it's called Spray with an E, and not only is it SaaS, it's SaaS for lawn care companies, but it's not just lawn care. It's only those who do chemical treatments of grass and foliage. Like, that's how tight that. Imagine that. How many? What are there? Thousands, single
Yeah.
digits of companies in the country, and yet they're building a successful business that was investable, by us.
I love that. I love that. So, man, okay, like I have a neighbor, okay? He's selling his $3 million house and building about a $6.5 million house. Right now, I'm in Naples, so that might be like $1 million house in some parts of the world, but in Naples, it's a weird place. So his business is subscription for all the documents you need to be a landlord, like everything, right? And that's his business. That's it. And I just saw him walking his dog. He has 3 dogs, but I just saw him walking his dogs, and I think, and he's just like, Jim, this is incredible. Like, it's once I have it turned on, it's turned on. I mean, now we're just adding to it, adding more things. Some people just stick with the basic plan. Some people get the advanced plan. They get all these things. Doesn't have a podcast. He doesn't have a blog. He doesn't have anything that he communicates with these people. They just pay whatever they pay a month to have access to these documents that are updated state by state, blah, 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 right? So it doesn't have to be this grandiose thing. It's like something like that is providing him and his family enough money to buy a $6 million house, right? So I'm fascinated by this. And so where do, like, for me, I'm fascinated. I'm interested. Where do I go to learn more
Mm.
about you guys?
Yeah. So there's a couple places. Um, if you want free education that we give away every week, I have a podcast called Startups for the Rest of Us. I've been 755 episodes now, so it's
Wow.
15 years. Every week we ship. And that's like the best advice that I can come up with every week, and I
Yeah.
have conversations with entrepreneurs. It's not just interviews though, it's answering listener questions and such. And then we also have a YouTube channel where we have 26 videos a year, and it's similar stuff of like, here's how to think about validating a market. Because the biggest mistake people make, to your point earlier, is they get an idea and then they either spend 6 months, nights and weekends building, or they spend $30,000 paying someone to build, and then they launch it to crickets. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's prior art of how to do this and not make the same mistakes everyone does, which is building something no one wants. So those are the free resources. I also write books. I've written 5 books, and those are $10 on Kindle. So the SaaS playbook is my most recent one.
Yeah. And they're on Kindle. We'll put the links in the show notes.
Yeah, Kindle, Audible.
So like, again, this is something different, like I said at the very beginning. And it's not, if you're out there and you are thinking, I'm trying to build cash flowing assets. So one of the things that we advocate for, Rob, is doing infinite banking. And so just for people out in the audience or anybody that's not familiar, is you build this insurance contract that we have people that have millions of dollars of cash value. And because you have that cash value, the insurance company has to give you an interest only loan to go buy cash flowing assets. Okay. This is like the way that I look at it. And if you reverse a ledger of assets and liabilities, you think of the left side of the ledger as your money pool and the right side of the ledger as your what assets are you buying and what are they returning and how fast can you flip. Every business is about turns, right? I mean, it's like, how fast can you make the money move? Well, it's always, what do I do? What assets do I go buy? Okay. And again, go back to the richest man in Babylon, invest in what you know. What business would you build? I don't know. Rob doesn't know, but talking to Rob and talking to his team, maybe that's the strategy of, hey, how would I build this into a SaaS business, right? And I know that there are people in the IBC space that are doing this way better than us. I want to do it better for Create Tailwind. I want to build our community and offer more and more to where people feel like they're getting more value. So we'll talk about that offline and get another meeting or something set up. But I think that this is a way, like you said, sometimes it's buy businesses. Okay, like Nick and I have a trash business. I have a refurbishment business. We have some industrial real estate. All of this stuff. These are all cash flowing assets, right? And they just kind of stack up. But this is an area that I don't think most people, including us, haven't. I don't have a cash flowing asset to do that, right? I haven't built that, and so building that. So that's really cool that what you're doing, and it's cool how you got into it. And in Los Angeles, I grew up in Los Angeles. I grew up in Inglewood. I tell this story, Rob, but I worked at a casket factory that was in El Segundo. Then they moved it to Compton. And I swung a hammer, like doing the hardware for caskets, for 8 hours a day in the summer. And one day I was walking through, I think it was off of like Imperial Highway, which is, it's like there's a freeway there now. But I don't know if that's Inglewood or LA or whatever the hell it is. So hard to tell sometimes in LA. But anyway, I look down and here's this guy pulling weeds. And it's the guy that owns the casket factory, Dwayne McIntyre. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And he's like, I own real estate all over the Los Angeles. I said, well, again, not knowing, not understanding at 14 years old or whatever I was. So why don't you have real estate up in Palos Verdes where you live? Right? Again, not getting it. But my point is that he had this little manufacturing business. He had this real estate business, and he's living in Palos Verdes, right? All the people that, are in Inglewood are wondering, how the heck do I get out of Inglewood? How do I, get out of this life? And I know Inglewood's a lot nicer than it used to be, but my point is that that's a tough business. I don't want to pull weeds. Like the weeds got to be pulled, but I don't have to do it. It's kind of like can't think of Dan. I can't think of his last name, Cottrell or something like that. Buy back your time.
Dan Martell.
Martell, yeah,
Yep.
Martell. Buy back your time. Like I'm going to pull the weeds, not me, but I'm going to get somebody to pull the weeds, right?
Yeah. What's leverage, right?
It's
You're
leverage.
leveraging other humans, or you're leveraging technology. These are the biggest things to lever to. There's also leveraging assets, as you're saying.
You know what? I love that you just said that, because when you look at software engineering, you look at that's intellectual property, like whatever, like those. When you look at the opportunities for the most leverage, you could buy a franchise and have somebody else run it. You can have an operations partner in other businesses. And that's leverage, right? But if you write a book and you sell it to millions of people, that's a lot easier leverage.
It's a lot of leverage, yeah.
And
a lot of leverage there.
Yeah, there's a lot of leverage there, right? And then it's about just getting getting some momentum on the on the book, right? People start to buy it. I mean, Rich Dad Poor Dad was written as a manual on how to play cash flow until he went on Oprah. That's leverage.
Yeah.
Going on the Oprah show was a massive, massive change in Robert Kiyosaki's life, because if he never goes on there, he's still trying to convince people that you got to learn how to play cash flow.
Right.
So, talk about maybe give me an example of something you've seen. Like, hey, this person came to us, they had this idea, or they were doing this, or maybe they were trying to build a SaaS and they weren't doing it the right way. And through our experience, we helped them.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of examples. I think the biggest thing I want to point out is, like, if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, hey, maybe I do want to get into software.
Yeah.
You don't have to be an engineer to do this. Now it helps, but about 20% of the companies we back, we only back companies with some type of revenue. All right. So 1,000, 2,000 a month is usually the minimum. But we have about 20% of the folks we back are not engineers and have no engineers on their founding team. And there's a couple different ways to get into it if someone's trying. One is no-code tools like Zapier and Make and Airtable. You can build prototype, pretty decent versions of stuff. What's the other one? Bubble is another one. So these are no-code tools where a non-technical person can kind of drag and drop and build prototypes, or even like semi-working versions of things. That ability didn't exist 5 years ago, right? AI is the other thing. I'm seeing non-developers go talk. They use tools like Cursor AI, or again, there's the kind of AI-driven drag and drop things where you can build prototypes if you have ideas to at least vet the idea and get an idea of, hey, I'm going to put this on the world. I'm going to try to market it. I'm going to try to get people to use it and see if I'm solving a problem, right?
Yeah.
To your point, in my career, I've written 5 books. Okay.
Yeah.
And so my audience is, maybe 100,000, 125,000 people, like across all my, books and podcasts and the YouTube. And I've had so many people come up and say, I wish I knew what you have in your books or in your podcast. I wish I knew this 10 years ago when I started, right? I hear this all the time. The other thing that I hear, to your point, and to get specific, is a software developer friend of mine. Well, he's a friend now, but he was a guy who saw me speak at some small little event. He was trying to build developer components, right? So components for other developers to use in their software. And he wasn't having any success with it. He was building them, but he didn't know how to market them. He didn't know how to sell them. And so he heard me talk, and then he bought my first book. Again, it's $10. You can get it on Kindle or PDF. And he realized, I don't know anything about marketing, right? I assume marketing is just this thing that happens, right? Build it and they will come type thing. So then he learned how to do search engine optimization, right? He learned how to write articles and rank in Google for it. He built a business. It's amazing little cash flow lifestyle business. I say little, it changed his life. He now makes, I think, $20,000 or $30,000 a month from this thing. And he's not Google, he's not Facebook, he's not Uber, he's not going to retire on it per se, but it allowed him, he's completely location independent, he's self-employed. He moved back to Taiwan with his family. I say back, his parents were from Taiwan. He always wanted to live there. And he said, I don't think I'll ever be able to do it. And he wrote me, a couple years ago and said, you changed my life, and it's like, that's actually why I do this now. Right. So I've sold enough companies now. I retired for 6 months and got bored many years ago. I don't need to work anymore, But what I do need to do is, for me, like my mission is to multiply the world's population of independent, self-sustaining startups. That's my mission in life now. And whether it's through books or podcasts or interviews like this, just trying to spread the word, I want people, whether they do it through software, frankly, or, you obviously have a lot, we're talking about a lot of other leverage. There's leverage through, other people, and there's leverage through assets. I just don't like it when people aren't reaching their maximum potential, if I'm being honest.
You know, no, I love that, Rob. And you know what's funny is sometimes people ask me, like, why do you do what you do? And like, I grew up very poor in Inglewood, and was homeless at one point, and I thought I figured out money when I got into like being a financial planner, and I thought Wall Street was how people got rich. And I realized it took me, I'm a slow learner. I was a solid 1.2, 1.3 student. So it took me 15 years doing that to realize that's not how people get wealthy. It's not, right? And then once I realized it, though, it was like the shackles came off. It didn't take very long to go find businesses, to go find things, to go. And I remember filling out a personal financial statement, and they said, okay, your net worth is like this number that I thought was like massive then. And I was like, that can't be right. No, let's like go back and let's like redo it. That's not right. They said, well, we're basing this on this factor, this factor. And I was like, gosh, that happened in like 4 years. It was just like crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, I live in Florida, so I see a lot of retirees, 20, 30 grand a month, and you don't have to worry about it being like, it's an asset. So as the government inflates and debases our money, it goes up in value because you just raise your prices a couple bucks. You just raise this. It's like tenants in real estate or whatever it is, you customers, you just pass on the inflation to them, which is fair. I mean, but when you own instruments like in Wall Street, those things are going down in value every day, even if they're going up with return because of inflation. So, there's so many things, and we probably could spend hours, but I want to encourage everyone, because here's what happens. You go start watching some of Rob's stuff, you start reading some of his books, and your creative energy, you get energy from Rob, whatever form that you're intaking. And then that takes 17 seconds for positive energy or negative energy to attract more energy. Okay. So all you have to do is read for 17 seconds. If you read for 68 seconds, you have momentum. I know that sounds funny, but it's scientifically proven. And the way that you build momentum is you read and you listen and you watch new information. You educate yourself every day. So I was told by a janitor when I was 18 years old to read for an hour a day. Now he would say, not today, that janitor. He said, if you read for an hour a day for 6 weeks, you become an expert in whatever you're reading about. I don't know if that's true. He was a janitor, but you know what? I started doing it and it makes sense to me. So like when I wanted to get it, get in better shape, I just started reading everything I could read. An hour a day for 6 weeks. And I know Malcolm Gladwell would say you need 10,000 hours. I get it, right? And to be a master, but more than 99% of people after reading for an hour a day for 6 weeks. So if you took the YouTube channel, you took the books, you took the podcast, pour into it and see if that momentum doesn't happen. And so, Rob, thank you for what you're doing. And I want to talk to you offline about what we're doing and how we might be able to work together to help create tailwind, serve more people. Because that's all I care about now is I do the same thing. I want people to realize that they're financial slaves, that they're medical slaves, that they are, like our food sucks. And we're just teaching people the truth. Right. And yeah, I don't grow my own food, but there's other ways that I can get good food and thinking about knowing the truth about what happens when you put something in your mouth and also what happens when you put something in your brain. So you can put negative energy in your brain or you can put positive energy in your brain. So everything is energy, right? Thoughts, whatever. So I'll get off that. We kind of went down a rabbit hole there, Rob. So Rob, you had a 9 to 5. I love engineers, by the way. I have business partners that are engineers. You know why? Because I'm not. And I love people that think that way because it's the opposite of the way that I think. And so it backs me up. People have read Rocket Fuel and all those things. And I'm not saying that I'm the visionary. I'm not going to implement anything. On the Colby, I'm a 10 quick start. There's nothing else. Those are the only skills that I have. Everything else is low. And so, but I can see the big picture. So I can't wait to read your books and watch some of this stuff because I'm going to have some great questions. But going from software engineer to, having this freedom of saying, I don't have to work, not trading my life for money, which my time is for money, but my life on earth is measured in time. So if I'm exchanging time for money, I'm exchanging my life for money. And that's kind of, to me, again, depending on your religious beliefs or non-religious beliefs, but it says the love of money is the root of all evil. So even if you don't believe that the Bible is the word of God, it's still good advice, right? Is don't love money. Well, if you're exchanging your life for money, then you do. So anyway, Dennis Miller, I think it was Dennis Miller used to say, didn't mean to go off on a rant there, but
didn't mean to go off on a rant. Yeah. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Remember that? Yeah. His monologues are great.
He was awesome. I still like him. So Rob, when you think of all of these things and, look, like I said, rarely do I have a guest on that I'm like, okay, I'm going to go read these books like right now, because this is just something that I don't have an expertise in. And I want to, over the next few weeks, become at least more educated than most people. And we're going to put in the show notes all the ways to get a hold of Rob, all the ways to listen to his information. But I would say don't reach out until you've actually put in some time so that you have better questions, that you can be more efficient. And it sounds like there's a ton of stuff, even just the episodes on the podcast, I'm sure you can learn a million things. But going from being a software engineers are kind of known for not taking risks, not taking, chances, not being very entrepreneurial maybe. But along the way, somebody had to give you great advice. Rob, what was the best advice you've ever received?
Yeah, I think the best advice was I was, I think like 19 years old, and I was working a college job at a construction firm, not swinging a hammer. I was wiring things up as an electrician.
Nice.
And the CEO of the company who had built it up from, I think it did $12,000 in revenue, when he acquired it in 1958, and the business was doing 500 million at the time in the Bay Area. And he had known my dad for 30 years. He had known me since I was born, type thing. And he saw me in the field doing stuff. And he said, never stop learning. Never stop learning, Rob Walling. And I was like, whoa. And I already was kind of a learner, but it ties into all the stuff you're talking about, where it's like, you read an hour a day. I mean, I have my entire life read at least an hour a day. I do a lot of audiobooks myself, right? So reading is maybe listening while I'm driving or I'm doing dishes or cooking, but never stop learning.
I think that is amazing. I had a mentor and just a guy that he happened to live in Palos Verdes, but which was like heaven to me when you're in Inglewood looking at Palos Verdes, you're like, that's where I want to be. But he was 89, I think. And he said, Jim, if you think that you're going to get to be a certain age and you got it all figured out, you don't. So you never have that arrival syndrome. Like, to me, arrival syndrome is, hey, you can't teach me anything. I know everything about everything. And that's never going to happen. You could be 100 and you're never going to have it all figured out. So I love that advice because Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, he always says your future is bigger than your past. I want to believe that when I'm 90 years old, I'm going to have that same attitude. Like, there might be something that I come up with that's going to change the world in my last month of life. You just never know. So I always think even when I'm going to die, my future is bigger than my past. All of the books, all of this, something's going to spark somebody to do something. Who knows, right? And so that's the attitude that you have to have, but you have to always be learning. I love that. You're always be growing in everything in your life, right? Okay. Last question before we wrap up is, if God came down from heaven and only allowed you to retain the knowledge that you've received from one book, what would that book be?
That book would be the Snowball, which is the story of Warren Buffett and
Yeah.
how he started from nothing and how
Yeah.
he built incredible wealth. And it's interesting, it's not a how-to manual. It's not, Rich Dad. You could probably learn more you'll learn more financial literacy from Rich Dad Poor Dad, or many of the other books that I'm sure you mentioned on the show. But for me, it inspired me so much to think in terms of decades, not years or months, right? That it's one foot in front of the other. And he just showed up and he just built that snowball. And also he doubled down on he has a unique gift that pretty much nobody else has. And it's this weird ability. These days, honestly, we might say Warren Buffett is just a little bit autistic. He goes, and he goes deep into these financial, reports and such in a way that like no one else would do, and started buying businesses and building snowballs. So I was so inspired by that book when I read it. I probably read it 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And although I haven't built my wealth the same way he did, it's still, I think it applies to any asset creation and again, just snowballing, and building things over decades.
What's interesting, Rob, is I get this, like, again, if you can't tell, I'm like into energy. So like, I feel like your energy, like just from the time that we got on here, even before we started recording, and I think about you in Los Angeles. And so I'm a visual person too. And I don't know where you live in LA, but like when you walk outside, like I'm in Florida, it's sunny most days. And it's beautiful, right? Now, some people say the humidity. I grew up in LA, no humidity. I've gotten used to the humidity here. And as a 59-year-old dude, my back feels better in humidity than it does when I lived in Denver, where it's super dry. But I walk outside, and when you're free and you're not stressed, and you just look at the sun and you're just like grateful. Like, so like, I feel like what you're doing, you have this energy of confidence that, hey, I know how to do this. Right? I've done it enough times. I know how to do it. I can help people do it. But you want to share that feeling, like that energy of, I'm enjoying my life. Right? And so I think that's really cool. And I kind of get that vibe from you. And, if that's the part of LA and California that I love, is people have that kind of attitude. Here, it's all like retirees and they're mad because, hey, they raised the price for a cheeseburger at the country club by $2 and I'm going to go to the board. And they're like, whoa, just settle down. Like that's, that's negative energy. Like it's negative energy attracts negative energy, right? I mean, it's 17 seconds. You're going to attract more negative crap in your life. Yeah. And so like, I love that energy that you have. And I felt from the very beginning, because that attracts more. So like more positive energy. And the more grateful you are, the more gratitude you're going to attract. I mean, it's awesome. So, Rob, we got everything in there in the show notes. Audience, go to the show notes, watch some YouTube stuff, listen to a podcast, and I would tell you, like, listen to one podcast, find one, listen to one. Right? You got to start somewhere. Watch one video, buy one book. And if they were going to start with one book, Rob, where would you recommend?
I'd recommend the SaaS Playbook. People can go to saasplaybook.com, or they can search for it on Amazon, frankly.
Perfect. Rob, thank you so much. I'm excited that you're on the show, and I'm excited for somebody out there in the audience to build some cool thing that maybe like 3 years from now that we're going to talk about them selling for $1 billion, and they heard about it on this show from you. So thank you for everything that you do. And audience, we're going to wrap this up like the way that we do every week. And that's with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and The Strangest Secret. Take it away, Earl.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, Go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.